Hey everyone, this is Aaron here. Just wanted to pop in and say, unfortunately, the last 30 minutes of this recording got blown up. We've had some audio problems, so I do apologize for that. I still think it's a pretty good episode, and we do get through the main plot of the story. So I did just want to let you guys know about that and apologize in advance. For what it's worth, Josh made a really terrible joke about Noah's character arc, and I did curse him out for that, and he deserved it. Anyway, enjoy the show.
I'm going to go on my oldest child tirade here, where...
Here we go. Let's put Josh on blast.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So the oldest kid will do something that is like a 4 out of 10, and parents bring down the hammer to make an example, and then the next one does something that's like an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, and they're like, what could I have done? You know?
Okay, but also, if we're going to continue with this metaphor, and then they'll look the youngest in the eye and say, you'll die alone, the last human on Earth. Suck it.
And that is your right.
Yeah.
You got me there.
Welcome to My Brother, My Brother's Friend and Me, a podcast where former evangelical brothers and a former Catholic not brother review Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
And this week we're reviewing Darren Aronofsky's controversial adaptation of the Flood story, Noah. Michael, since this was your curse that you laid upon me personally, I think we're gonna let you steer this ship, steer this arc, if you will. And how about you just take us through this wild ride?
I am so excited. I love this film unironically.
Before we get, super deep in it, I want to just give my friend's review of this movie, which was, Darren Aronofsky didn't make that movie.
Yeah.
No!
So look,
Aronofsky
Aronofsky is one of my favorite writer, director, producer, film people. I love Black Swan. I titled this review, Be Thankful I Didn't Make Us Review Mother, because one could argue that is the creation story.
Yeah, I did read the Wikipedia summary of Mother last night, and I was like, wow, I am glad we didn't have to read Mother, because that sounds real dumb.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
So this is also a wild ride. It has a star-studded cast. Originally, Christian Bale and Michael Fassbender were both offered the role of Noah. Choice one would have been a very bad choice. Also, the role of Ela was originally offered to Dakota Fanning.
Oh.
Which would have been a very different vibe.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And last but not least, no.
Yeah, because I thought Emma Watson was a big...
Oh, Emma Watson was by far the best.
I thought Emma Watson was
Yeah.
a big reason why this worked. Oh, yeah. She
and
killed
Noah's
this
wife
thing.
was almost Julianne Moore, which I love.
Oh my god.
And so I do think we have to open with, this film is described by Aronofsky himself as the least biblical film. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. It was far more inspired by the Dead Sea Scrolls, and particularly the Book of Enoch and the Book of the Jubilees, which are both wild apocrypha. If you guys aren't familiar, they actually go through like a really interesting deep dive. I'm going to get into that a little bit later when it's relevant to the plot. And I do actually think like this film has really interesting plot points of survivor's guilt and the environmentalism in the film, where it's almost like a call to action, right? Like people of faith are called to like be stewards of the earth. And I found that to be like a pretty brave take. I do want to open flat out with my biggest criticism of the film. And I dropped a link in our Google Doc about it. So this film is so whitewashed and so universally white. And I find that so problematic.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
It's the opposite of the Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
Painfully white.
The exact opposite.
And I thought that was a really weird choice because like you are given this opportunity to kind of base this story kind of like in a time like before time kind of like how some biblical historians refer to things as like before the flood and after the flood. So you can do whatever you want. You can kind of place it like and have it a multicultural group, but they just I wonder how much of that was like Hollywood. We want to whitewash and get like big name white celebrities, and how
Yeah.
much of it was just like not really
I
thought
mean,
of.
they're one. Those problems are one and the same, though, right? If you're talking about the film industry in America, like you can't
Yeah,
have a big audience without big movie stars, and you can't have big movie stars that without like them being white. So it's like it's all sort of rolled together.
Yeah, and I mean, so I read a review about it from the Huffington Post, and Ephraim Smith really just makes a good point by saying that the film deals with the curse of Ham by, quote, simply erasing people of color from the story. And like that feels like what happened. Like they decided this is a white family and issues of race and issues of like any sort of diversity are just going to be absent.
I will say I am very happy that they didn't just make Ham black, and because like as I don't know how much you guys know about this, the curse of Ham has been used to accept deep-seated racism. And as someone who's studied a little bit of the Christian side of the Noah story, I was kind of amazed that like how much they included of Ham, just because that's not something that most ideas of Noah from the Christian perspective demonstrate. And I think that it's more of a calling to this is a more of a Jewish tale than it is a Christian tale from this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. Aronofsky uses the Jewish tradition of Midrash, which is like taking a story and like thinking and extrapolating on it. So it's
Hmm.
less about like getting every plot beat verbatim and more of saying, what is a different perspective and interpretation of that? And frankly, that's my favorite part of the story and why I like the film, is that instead of telling us the story that we've all heard time and time again, this film decided to take it in different beats. So I feel like that's a perfect transition to start talking about the plot. And we open pulling no punches. We start in the Garden of Eden. We see,
As all stories should begin.
yes.
I was kind of impressed when the second Home Alone movie started in the Garden of Eden. But yeah, if you look close, it does.
And
Well, if you think about it, there's a fiery sword in Home Alone 1 when he sets the wet bandit's head on fire. It's a direct analog.
I mean,
Listen, if I would do an entire biblical analysis of the Home Alone two movies because I don't count anything without Kevin.
Yeah,
He
no,
is the star.
obviously.
and what I really like about this opening is it frankly starts and then also introduces us to the supernatural that is going to be in this film with the Watchers. And I am going to go
Yeah.
Watchers later when we get a proper introduction of them. They're kind of one of my favorite parts of this story, so I really love them.
They're my favorite part of this film, bar none.
When they
Definitely.
showed up and I watched this as a 15-year-old, I went, "Yep, this movie's good."
I mean, it is really funny that this film, like, it actually was universally praised by, like, Christian and Jewish leaders alongside, like, audiences liked it. So it's a really fascinating, like, cross section of opinion here. I do have to say, I love that we get the visual interpretation of Cain's children being evil with a murky black stain on the earth, which were shown.
Yeah, it looks like
Um,
Yeah.
tuberculosis spreading through a lung.
yep.
It's a very impressive shot.
Yes.
Also, Cain got nasty. Like Seth was like, "I'm gonna make one," and then Cain was like, "I'm gonna get nasty and make a ton."
Yeah. Well,
There were
and
so
I
many
actually
people in
think,
this film. Yeah,
yeah, like, there was what, 10 generations in between Adam and Noah.
Hmm.
So, like, that's not a lot of time to have as many people as we saw. I do also really like
King fucks.
we get Noah's dad wrapping the snake skin around his arm, telling Noah about the generations, which I find really cool because large stretches of the Old Testament are so-and-so begat so-and-so who begat so-and-so who begat so-and-so. And I think like recognizing that as an important part of storytelling and history was cool for the film.
Yeah, and a part of that calls to authority.
Yes.
Because a lot of the biblical tales, even if you look at like the New Testament, of where they open of like, and this is how we got Jesus, we'll go back a couple generations. It's kind of like, I know you probably don't think he's actually related to this person. Now let me prove that he is, and go back all of the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so this beautiful scene between father and son is interrupted by the evil spawn of Cain, in which Noah's father is unceremoniously killed and the magic snakeskin is stolen. And it is a reminder to
I would like to request that we just refer to this man as capitalism.
No, he has a cool name. It's Tubal-Cain. That rules.
Yeah, I feel like the name is too cool for us to ignore.
I mean, he is obviously the avatar of capitalism in Greek.
Yes.
Industrialization in general, but like, yeah, he has a dope
But
name.
like right before he kills Noah's dad, he gives like an Ayn Rand speech.
What does he say?
About how,
yeah, like God is like left this man, and I'll be damned if I don't do whatever I want, damned if I don't take everything I want. Like, yeah, and then spit.
Yeah, don't forget spit.
This point comes back later, and it's so funny because that he does the exact same thing like 600 years later.
It is funny. This film does take a like non-direct approach with time. But yeah, I felt bad for poor little Noah, and I found myself wondering how the hell did he survive so long?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it also like, I guess I just made like my own dot connections because like right after this we skip to Russell Crowe, who is, I don't know if you viewers know, not a little kid. So obviously time has passed.
Yes.
In my own head, I was like, oh, he just goes and hangs out with Methuselah. That's not at all what the movie says happens.
Nope. So we do shoot forward into the future, and we see, like you said, Russell Crowe being an adult Noah. He has a family, and he is giving his son Ham a lecture about the beauties of environmentalism when Ham picks a flower, saying that we only take what we need and nothing more. And like, this film really does show Noah as like a radical environmentalist, and I really appreciate that because it kind of works with the narrative.
It also is going to play into like his radical nature as it comes up.
Absolutely.
Like this, he's going to make some decisions. Like from my perspective, watching this now as an atheist is less of a scriptural tale and more of a tale of a radical understanding his beliefs.
Yeah, 100%. And we get our first use of CGI animals, and
Can we talk about the CGI real quick?
yeah, like I made a note of it. I feel like we need to talk about it.
It's bad, y'all.
It's very bad.
So like Aronofsky usually takes a like position in his film, and like you see it with Black Swan, you see it with Mother, you see it with a lot of his films where minimal CGI. And for some reason, we didn't get that in this film, and it shows.
I mean, I get it. Like, I understand why you don't want fucking real
Right.
live elephants and shit. And like, you know, it's hard
I
to
don't.
hard to find an armadillo dog these days. So,
I'm so glad you mentioned this because the second it showed up again, like when this movie came out and I was 15 years old, I was like, all right, I'm on the hook. You got an armadillo dog first 20 minutes. This is obviously the major character.
So I just think that like they could have used the Jurassic Park approach, not the Jurassic World approach, where less is more. Like, I don't need to see like close-up shots of like a wounded CGI animal to show me that men are assholes, right? I feel like killing Noah's dad and like the general state of the earth that we find it in is plenty.
And by adding the armadillo dog, it was an interesting like decision because he could have just made an actual dog, but Aronofsky was like, look how cool this animal is. Look how cool it is.
That's true. He
It's
wanted
dead.
that dog. He wanted you to know how this cool dog was killed by those bad men. So
Wouldn't you
Yes.
love to have an armadillo dog? You
you can't, because Cain ate it.
Because Cain fucks.
We do get a showing that Noah is a prophet, and we see that he has prophetic dreams. And I actually really love the imagery of this dream. We see, Eden, we see Cain killing Abel, we see the ground covered in blood before the waters rush in. And Noah went, yo, I got to talk to the oldest dude I know. And he's going to go talk to Methuselah.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, my Bible scholars. Oldest person in the Bible?
Yes.
Yeah. I was taught that Methuselah, there's an interpretation that he could actually be Adam.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually based on any fact, but that was one thing I was taught when we were studying the Old Testament.
Interesting.
I like these Old Testament fanfics. I'm digging it.
Catholicism has a lot of those.
According to some Protestant, Catholicism is just a fanfic, but I don't share those beliefs.
Oh my god. Let's not dredge up those 30 years war, fellas.
We already did that in the last 4
Yeah.
episodes.
That's what the people come for. They come for that 1630 tension.
Oh my god. So on the way to visit Methuselah, I had a light bulb moment in which I figured out how Noah survived all of this time. And my interpretation is Noah is Geralt from The Witcher, just less sexy.
I mean, he's also the gladiator from Gladiator, so
True.
He's also the dude from Les Mis. Are we just naming
that's true.
things?
No, he did. I was like, that's John Valjean right there. I could hear Valjean more than any other Russell Crowe character
Yes.
in Noah, and it was really distracting. But yeah, no, I think that's a good point. He does have a lot of survival skills, and he is a cool badass who fights these dudes with his rock weapons.
And I want to point out that, Michael, you are correct. He is less sexy than Gerald. However, he's still sexy. He's Russell Crowe. He could get it.
I'm going to take the brave controversial take and say disagree, but let's move on. We see how blighted the land is. We see how, Noah speaks to his family about the over-extraction of resources. I find this to be a really interesting message that the film is so aggressively blatant about.
Let's talk about Zohar real quick. Because it immediately reminded me of the unobtainium from Avatar in 2009.
Yes!
It's just a generic magic ore that you can just get, and sometimes you can use it to create fire, and you can also use it to power your forges to create a medieval society. That's what the descendants of Cain, Tubal-Cain's whole army is from the 10th century. And but also it can do weird magic shit, and everybody wants it, and it ends up being the thing that destroys the world. I was reading the flood story just now in the Bible, and there is also biblical precedent for the world being blighted. That's God curses Cain at one point. He's yeah, no crops will grow for you. And I thought that was very interesting, the way that Aronofsky interpreted that.
Yeah, and I do appreciate plot ore, as I referred to it.
Plot ore.
Because it really just is an ex machina for whenever our heroes are in trouble or we need something unexpected or unexplainable to happen.
We need technology and we don't know what to do. Have some Zohar.
Yes.
Oh, but I think it's also important to know that Aronofsky was it's going to do that, but also I'm going to have 18 shots of Noah just making a very small fire with it. Which, that's getting a barrel of oil and using that to, cook some ramen. What? Just get some stones and hit them together. What are you doing, Noah? We only take what we need, and by what we need, I mean I don't want to have to make this fire.
So my interpretation of it was a little different in that, we don't really see a lot of, wood or trees or anything like that. So, Noah
Yeah.
had to do that. And I'm just imagining, like, this is something that we use sparingly, but it's also kind of our only choice because, the land has been blighted by the creator.
There's a through line through this movie, and it's one of my favorite, and it's I've referred to it as God's a little scamp, because throughout this movie, anytime like God does something, it's always in a "oh you" kind of way. It's the talking about the unatanium in this movie reminded me of when Noah's going through talking to Ham about like, we can't pick that flower because it won't instantly grow back, and then it does. And because God's just
God's a huge dick in this movie.
He's just a little scamp.
Just like some chaotic energy injected in.
Yeah, I would try to jump in as the plot goes to my other God's a little scamp narrative.
So in the mine, they encounter one survivor, Ela. She's really wounded. She's the only one alive. And then we get to see Noah's wife show off some like medical skills. And then, of course, because we need a heightened sense of urgency, we see an army of men, like some scavengers, poachers, start running at them. And where they run is really interesting to me because we don't really get an explanation as to what it is, or like right off the bat. It's explained afterwards. You see like this blackened circle with like skulls on heads, and like it's very, very, very clearly somewhere that they shouldn't go. And Noah and his family, of course, decide to run there. And the men are freaked out. They're like, hell no, we're not doing it. And then a watcher knocks Noah out. And now here, I feel like, is the perfect tangent to talk about the Watchers. I feel like I want to let Aaron get in his opinions about the Watchers first.
Okay. The Watchers are easily my favorite part of this film. I'm a big, Michael, we talked about this on Twitter, but like I'm a big Greek mythology nerd, so like that's where my love of like horrible monsters came from. Is that Dolores Greek Myths book. And ever since then, I've just like loved big, stupid monsters. Age of Mythology was one of those Ensemble Studios games that I loved because it was just like, I want a Hydra to fuck up a bunch of little helpless dudes with spears. And this movie has so many good scenes of just these big rock golems. They're like 4-armed rock golems, and we'll talk about how they go on to explain their origin stories. They're basically fallen angels that got like stuck in the mud, and now their wings are all muddy. But like there's so many scenes of these big rock monsters just like owning men with their huge rock fists, and this movie made me so uncomfortable, but like that the fight scenes owned. I love the Watchers so much.
So I think it's important to describe what the Watchers look like. Now, I don't know if any of our listeners ever played with Bionicles.
Oh my god,
and
you're so right.
Yeah, and when you were just like, how many things can I fit on this Bionicle? Like, what's the max amount of arms, legs, and like bumps that I can put on it? That's what Watchers look like.
Yeah. Who was the bad guy in Bionicle? Is like Maku Hida or something? It's like that, except just like 100 like weird rocky, craggy appendages. It owns.
And their faces legit look just like Bionicle.
It's actually really funny because Watchers are actually biblical. Like they're not just apocryphal.
They're the Niflheim, right?
Yes. So the Niflheim are they're mentioned in the book of Daniel, but they are more thoroughly explained. Like the book of Daniel just says there are angels and they're Watchers, and that's all the information we're giving you. No further explanation. The books of Enoch, which are found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, go really in depth. So the Watchers are angels sent to watch over humans. But here's the thing. They're kind of horny. So they see women and they're like, hey, what's it like to fuck? So the Watchers...
We've all been there.
2 out of 3 of us, maybe.
I'm going to remain silent and not comment on this dynamic for my own self-preservation.
So the Watchers decided to fuck some humans, and they created these like giants, the Nephilim, as Aaron mentioned. So here's the thing: they also pass the knowledge down, like celestial knowledge, down onto their descendants. Their descendants are described as giants. They're described as really aggressive. Some translations of the Book of Enoch say that these are actually just descendants of Adam that were like really like progressive in their technology. But also it mentions that the Nephilim teach humans things, all sorts of things like sorcery, cosmetics, weaponry, like they just go everywhere. Basically, they teach humans too much. And, you described liking Greek myths, and there's also, a through line
Prometheus.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so in the Book of Enoch, it says that God called on the Great Flood to eliminate the Nephilim because they were the cause, and like maybe not the cause, but the catalyst to a lot of the descendants of Cain's wickedness. And frankly, I left this film going, okay, so I need to read the Book of Enoch in its entirety, not just these snippets that I read all of this from. And so then the Watchers come out and they all talk to Noah, and they're like, Noah's like, I want to talk to Methuselah. And they're like, we hate men, fuck you.
That is the exact sentence they say.
I mean, and like, can ya blame them? They stuck their neck out for men, and then men just like really fucked them over. And we'll get to some of that because one of the sweet baby angels, Og, explains, and he is a sweet little boy. I love him.
I love him. Oh
Og
my
rules,
god,
yeah.
he's somehow adorable.
And Og decides to actually betray the Watchers and help Noah. And he explains to Noah why they became rock golems. So these Watchers were originally like beings of complete light. And when they came down to Earth, they kind of look like a meteor shower, basically. But when they land, they take on like the ground around them. So they become encased in this rock. And so they decided to help humanity because they really felt bad for them after they were kicked out of Eden. And while that didn't go so well, humans hunted them down for sport because people suck.
Because we're monsters, yeah.
Yeah, because we are the monsters.
Because rock monsters taste so good, guys.
However, we get to see Methuselah, who decides to double as Azor Azai here with a flaming sword defending the Watchers. And it's just so badass watching Methuselah just like infernate all of these people.
That shot is so cool because he like takes the big burning sword and just like stabs into the ground, and there's just like a big circle of blackened earth, and you just see all the bad Watchers and like the men just get fucking scorched owns.
My favorite part of that scene is like right before he puts the sword in the ground, one of the Watchers kind of gets tripped up by the men, and then after the fire, the Watcher like runs by and kind of gives like Methuselah like a
Thumbs up.
Well, and it really
like,
goes to show like there is a line of good, right? Like Methuselah is this like just person who really like feels for the Watchers and has empathy. And then there are people who are basically like a culture of sociopaths who just want a transactional relationship and then fuck them when they're not useful.
So viewers at home, I will give you, until Michael gives this casting reveal, which is probably about 5 minutes away, to guess who old Methuselah is. I guarantee you can get there within 3 guesses.
Another hint, Methuselah looks like a Lord of the Rings orc and elf had a child in this movie.
Actually, yes, 100%. And so a really interesting reveal too, where the Watchers, Og reveals that the Creator has punished the Watchers by not speaking to them. So basically, God gives you the silent treatment if you do something wrong.
Because he's a little scam. He's just a little scam.
And then we get to meet Methuselah, who is played by Anthony Hopkins. And I just love this casting.
rules.
I love this casting.
It's incredible. He's such a good weird grandpa.
Well, and he enjoys this. He is clearly just having the time of his life.
He just loves them berries, yo.
And so he insists on having tea with Noah, which we can only assume is some sort of like, hallucinogenic, because then Noah gets another vision, but this time of the ark and all of the animals like swimming up towards the ark. It is actually, in my opinion, a good use of CGI rather than such a poor use of CGI as we will see and have seen.
Well, yeah, because it's actually like cloaking it in the
Yes.
water, and it's not like CGI gets bad when you're just looking like straight at it and you're not using like some stuff to cover up the fact that the CGI budget just wasn't there. They blew it all on
Exactly.
Russell Crowe and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, they did blow all the budget on casting. And so Methuselah gives Noah a seed from the Garden of Eden, which I find to be like a cool little, Chekhov seed, if you will. And then they head back because Noah knows what he has to do. He came to Methuselah, but like the answer's right in front of him. He has to build an ark somehow.
And then we see Noah's kids playing with the rock
It's
monster.
so fun. I love that scene. Ham's
so
just like
cute.
playing tag with Og. It's adorable.
And Og is
And
having
Og
fun.
just looks confused, but like enjoying
He's like,
it.
do you like this? Okay. I hope I don't trip and
If
crush
I touch
all of
you,
your
you
bones.
could die.
Yeah. I don't quite know how to play without killing you, but I'm gonna try. And then the Watchers actually come to break up this cute moment because Aronofsky loves to give us a little treat of a cute moment and then take it from us.
Ooh, just real quick to interject. Noah does plant the seed beforehand.
Yes.
And that is important to my through line, but please continue.
Yes. So Noah plants the seed, the Watchers come, and they, dude, what the fuck? Humans are awful. They betrayed us. Why are you helping them? And then right as it looks like they're gonna win and like drag Og back, a geyser shoots up.
Because God's a little
And
scared.
then we get this we do get a cool scene then of like an entire like oasis just like blooming and growing. And it actually made me write down what is kind of the anti-Pastor Dave in that like every time he thinks, oh, God has cursed me with this awful thing, we see this scene or we see like some plot point come in and just save the day and make things just a little bit easier for
Noah
Noah.
also doesn't make some slight, vague racist remarks about, man, this Chinese guy. So, I'm Team Noah if we're going
Man, these foreign watchers. Ugh.
with their questions.
You know how the Watchers can be.
Jesus.
So then we get another flash forward in
Really
time.
cool one.
They're still in this.
It watches
Yeah.
because the geyser shoots out these at four rivers, I believe, which has some biblical meaning that because I'm the way I am, I didn't Google. And you watch the river kind of get like larger and curve through like the land, and like I dug it. I really really liked that scene.
I thought it was cool to just see like the vast power that this like one little seed had. And so Noah and his family are living in this, forest, and they're building an ark. We see Shem running around and like kissing Elah, which is a little weird because, that's his adopted sister. But,
Yeah.
At least they adopted her.
I
Like,
will say
before like probably right before puberty. Like it would be because like so many of those stories would be like you two were raised together since 2, and like that's weird. But this one was only
that's no
a
good.
little very weird.
And to be totally fair, like in regards to like Genesis pairings, this is like the least gross.
It's about to get way
incest.
grosser at the end of the
'Cause
movie.
Yeah. But like the Book of Enoch does like actually blatantly lay out the incest. So Genesis does a lot of like subtext where it's like, we're not going to tell you where Adam's sons got their wives. The Book of Enoch is like, oh, so they took their sisters and they had babies with them, who then had babies, who then married each other, and like, yeah. The family tree has very few branches.
But Cain fucks.
We get to see Noah building the ark, and he now has his quarantine haircut ready. He shaved his head. Noah explains that they have to protect all the animals, regardless of how, weird they are, or if they're snakes or what have you. He's like, look, we have to, take care of all of these creatures. We get our first indication that Ham is horny and doesn't understand why everyone gets a +1 to the party except for him.
He's so horny in this movie.
There's a really gross part where like he's like, because the birds come in at this part, and there's a really cool shot of all the birds like flying over in this massive, enormous flock. But there's a part where Ham is looking at these doves, and he's like, "Father, the doves come in pairs. I want a girl Ham too." And it's just like, oh, Ham, I don't like you.
No.
He also, like, and I don't want to, like, rag on this actor, but dude was Percy Jackson, so I've got some, like, pent-up anger towards him. Because he has one role in any movie, and that's kind of confused mouth open. And that's his, like, any point in the movie, when he's supposed to be angry, when he's supposed to be sad, confused mouth open.
He does have one emoting face.
Which does track for all of Noah's family.
Yeah, and frankly, it tracks for the character, right? Like, he is the least likable character in this film.
Yeah.
And I also said building an ark is easy when you have rock golems helping you. Like,
I wanted to point that out because at that point when the rock golems have confronted Noah, Noah's like, "Help us," and I was like, "No, Noah, you mean work for you? You guys can't cut down a forest with your bare hands. You piece of shit."
Okay, yeah. But it's canon in the movie that they like arts and crafts because like right before you run into the scorched earth, they've got all those like nice skull effigies.
That's
true. And I mean, I guess it is more productive than them just like sleeping and being sad because they don't hear from the creator.
Yeah.
So then we see Ham run off into the forest because Ham loves to just like have a walk-off moment.
Into the forest specifically.
He does it like 4 or 5 different times.
Yeah,
this is like, Pastor Dave Rage Runs. Like, it shows up so much.
Maybe Ham is Pastor Dave.
Yeah, he's the great grandfather.
Yep.
Has one emotion, not a good actor.
And he actually runs into Tubal-Cain in the magical forest, and
we don't know that one yet. I did like an Ace Attorney point. I don't know why. Objection! We don't know. He needs to spit.
True. He does need to spit, but through context clues, you know that this is like the leader of the bad people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, further proof that humans are dumb. They are 10 years into building an ark and there's a giant fucking forest and humans are just now going, hey, what's up with that?
Yeah, there hasn't been water here in 400 years and now there's a river. We'll wait 9.5 years before we follow this river.
Again, God's a little scamp. He literally gave all of humanity a roadmap to where the ark is.
Yes, that was not cool, God.
Yeah,
why'd you do that?
Scamp. It's funny.
So we do see that and that to me was like a cool little moment of like, say who you are without saying it. I didn't spend a lot of time on any of these scenes because I feel like they're pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if you guys had any opinions.
Yeah. He just like gives Ham the axe, which I find like that is going to be a whole thing of him trying to like control Ham through gifts and through like be aggressive.
I actually like the Ham storyline because of that, right? Tubal-Cain's whole thing is like trying to show Ham how to quote be a man. And I'd like to point out it's very funny that toxic masculinity is like pre-flood. So that's great. But like that is Ham's whole storyline is like he's trying to quote be a man because otherwise because he tells his dad like, hey dad, if I can't fuck I can't be a man. And Tubal-Cain's like, no, if you can kill you can be a man. And that's where this whole tension between Ham and Tubal-Cain comes from, because he like gives him the Warhammer, and he's like, and when Noah comes back to call Ham back, Tubal-Cain's like, "Don't take my best soldier." He's like very clearly grooming Ham for like a weird purpose, and I think it's interesting, despite the fact that Ham is a annoying character.
I definitely agree.
Like
I
that
do
arc.
love that the forces of evil are mistreating the environment and toxic masculinity. That is a message I can get behind.
Yeah. And eating meat.
Oh yeah, there is a scene
We'll
for
talk about
that.
eating meat.
So we get the reveal that Ela is actually barren, and she doubts her place. And Noah, we get to see him being a total asshole. He's like, yeah, I thought you were a burden. I thought you would be an extra mouth to feed, and you're useless, but you're actually a gift. and, and that is Noah. That is Noah. He's just a curmudgeon-y asshole.
Well, I think that like this movie demonstrates one of my favorite D&D tropes, which is like the alignment order, in which he is so clearly lawful good, even when that hurts things.
Yeah.
He's Javert,
and
yeah.
it's fascinating to watch, like him, and then you've got like Methuselah, who's like probably chaotic good.
Yeah. He might just
Definitely
be
chaotic
chaotic
something.
neutral.
But like he genuinely like goes out of his way to help
Yeah.
like his family, and then you've got Ayn Rand capitalism, who like I think you can make an argument for lawful evil.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't think he's chaotic.
Yeah.
I think his followers are largely chaotic. But
Well,
I think
and
he's
Noah's
Yeah.
wife is like the definition of neutral good, right? Do what is good, do what is helping people. Like, almost rules and structures should only exist as much as they help people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to talk about the Baron point real quick. Aronofsky, I don't know a whole lot about his work, but between what I read about Mother and this plot point, and also like I don't know how much you guys like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but immediately like the next year after this movie came out was when Age of Ultron came out, and that's the point where they were like, oh hey, Scarlet Widow, you're a monster because you can't have kids.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So 2014, 2015 was the year of you're not a real woman if you can't have kids, and that sucks so bad.
Yeah, Aronofsky's original script just had broken uterus instead of Ela.
Well, I do actually find this plot point very interesting, right? Like, I think that it is kind of a mixed bag in terms of messaging. Because on one hand, you do have like the family, in particular Shem, being so aggressively pro Ela and being in love with her and like embracing her as his love interest, all while knowing that means his line stops right there.
Yeah.
And I think that like is an interesting point.
Because I think it's important to note that like Noah's original plan was to go like get 2 gals for his younger sons.
Yeah, we're about to get to
Yeah.
that.
Yep. That's literally the next scene. So Noah goes on a matchmaking adventure.
It's the grossest section of the movie.
I hate this so much.
So this to me is peak Aronofsky with like grotesque imagery in crowded spaces and like playing with that like psychological horror aspect where like thing you see is like jump scares, but it's like the horror of man, right? You see people like trading babies for food. You see like squalor, utter squalor. Like it's disgusting. It's gross. It's dark. It's lit by fire, but like not well. The crowded nature, the claustrophobia is like to me, one of my favorite horror tropes is if you can make me feel claustrophobia through the screen. And Noah going through that crowd, I felt claustrophobic. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, this is where when I watched this in theaters with Sierra, this is where I was like, oh no, this isn't gonna be a fun movie, is it? Like, because it started getting the tone completely shifts because you see Noah just like pushing through these like hundreds of people and like everybody's just like talking about selling babies for meat and they're dragging women away to be traded and there's this shot, right, because they're talking about how they need meat to survive because they can't grow anything. And there's this big, like, there's this palisade between the main army camp and, like, all the other, I guess, the throng of humanity behind it. And, like, there's these palisades, and they're like, okay, hey, I'll trade you, I think they trade, like, these women for, like, a deer, like a Paleozoic deer or something. And they tear down the palisade, and, like, there's just, like, people just scrambling all over. They, like, throw the deer over the palisade, and then in, like, this weird bad CGI shot, like, the people just start tearing into the deer with their, like, bare hands, and you, like, see the flesh ripping away. And I was just like, oh, I hate this so much.
The CGI at this point is, like, World War Z-esque, where it's just, like, so bad like, human mob. And, I don't, the CGI really, like, the scene does so much, but the second that scene came up, like, Looney Tunes music played in my head because it was just so cartoonish.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a directorial choice, and we'll get further into, like, things we would do differently with this film, but, like, something I would do is I would make it darker, and I would still show that scene, but, like, it being darker and, like, mostly you hear it than see it. Because I think, like, the audio experience of this is, like, so disconcerting.
As someone who was typing a paper while watching this movie, yeah.
So Noah sees a human, like, transform into a snake creature, and, like, it's kind of another... That scene I actually think is, like, a better use of CGI because it's a flash, and it's quick, and it's dark, and it does everything I wish the scene right before it had done. And then he has one of his visions of the whole place in flames. And, like, can ya blame him?
Yeah, it's a rough day for Jaboy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to someone and saying, hey, you get to decide whether or not humanity is going to live or die. Here's Walmart Black Friday 2009. And it's like, oh, that's good.
Or any Black Friday,
yeah.
really.
Well, and it actually makes the next conversation Noah has with his wife really fascinating, where he comes back hardened. He is like, all of humans are wicked. There is not a single righteous person in this crowd. We are not righteous. We all deserve to go extinct. And his wife is like, but what about our children? What about the good that I see in my family? And I think an important note to make about her is that she was described as the one righteous descendant of Cain in the Bible. So among all these people, and, like, the film does a good job of showing how many people we're talking about, she is the one righteous person. So I think if you look at their backgrounds, of course she sees the good in people. She's like, I came from that and I still care.
I love the scene of Noah's roast session of his children. Like, the second it happened, like, sunglasses appeared on his head, and he got on, like, the Comedy Central stage, and he's like, look at Ham, that horny motherfucker.
I know.
He's like, Sham, he just will do anything you tell him to.
Shem is a people pleaser, Ham is horny, you will do anything for your children. And I'm like, dude, of course she would.
And then their youngest kid, and etc. about him.
And he's a little twerp. And I do, like, really like how Name is such a good foil to Noah. And, like, I just think they play off each other really well. And this scene is the beginning of that, not the end.
Every interaction she has with Noah in these, like, really emotional confrontations, I think that it is astounding to watch her acting technique, which is, I'm going to act a lot, and it works. It totally works. And Russell Crowe's approach to acting, which is, I'm not gonna.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
So like I can imagine Aronofsky being like, "Give me a facial expression," and Russell Crowe's like, "I have the singular. Would you like that one?"
Well, and I do think
we should
it's
point
in
out that
character.
Name is played by Jennifer Connelly, so
Yes.
you know, she's a very good actress too.
Yeah, she killed
Very
it.
good actress. And I do think that she really threads the needle of emoting but not overacting.
Yes.
I never am taken out of it by her. Note is very simple. Ham is horny and mad because he's a teenager.
So
Like
horny.
all
I
he
get it.
cares about is getting a girlfriend, and like he should just calm down. Name goes to talk to Methuselah, and he tells her, "Look, you gotta trust Noah," and he's right. Everyone's awful. And she's like, "Okay, but like, I don't want my kids to die alone. Have you thought about that?" And it's an interesting interaction because, like, she's really giving a very basic argument of we are social creatures, and like, I don't want one of my kids to like literally die having buried everyone he's ever met.
Yeah, I want to point out, Ham is not the youngest kid. Ham is the second to youngest kid.
No.
He should have the second to biggest, like, upsetness. Like, his younger brother, if I was him, I'd be like, listen, at least you have someone to bury you, you dick.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get eaten by all these
No one's
birds.
burying me.
Noah looked me in my face and said, "You will be the last human being."
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dad.
And so Ham runs off. He falls into a pit and meets a girl. We get our apocalypse meet cute.
It is pretty cute. They're a cute couple.
Yeah, for the whole 4 hours they know each other.
Yeah.
Yes. And he's like giving her food, and she's like, "What the fuck? Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you?" I I find their whole situation kind of odd. Like it really is. To me, Ham is the boy that went to an all boys school and met the first girl he's ever met that's not family and is like, "I'm in love with you."
Oh, totally. That's literally what happens.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's both a metaphor and a just descriptive of what happened to him.
I also made an important note, the most important note I'll ever mention. So attractive, I can barely listen to him when he's on screen. Like I just like blank out. I don't listen to anything that comes out of his mouth.
He's such a himbo in this movie too.
He is
He
an extreme
really is.
himbo.
He's so pretty dumb and just so dumb pretty. Like there's
really
a scene
is.
later, and I'll describe it. But like when it happened, I'm like, you are lucky that Emma Watson finds you so attractive, you dumb man.
Well, because I actually feel like Emma Watson as Ela is in the same position that I'm in. I feel like he talks and she just glazes over in his beauty. Like
Yeah.
it's just
No, she's very out of his league, but she's very into him, and that's nice.
yes.
I love that for them.
So Methuselah points out with Ela that she's his great grand. Does kind of reinforce how incesty all of this is because he goes and they talk in the forest.
While he's looking for
Yes.
berries.
Well, he's looking for berries.
Yes.
This is important.
He's
Do you have my berries?
searching for berries because he's a little scavenger. And he's like, "Hey, you're my great granddaughter, but I never blessed you." And then he's like, "You know what I think is a really smart move for you? Pseudo incest." And he blesses her and like touches like roughly stomach area, film womb. And we get the impression that she is now fertile.
The exact things out of his mouth were the power of the newsboys will guide me, and then is able to heal her.
And so while all of this is happening, we see storm clouds just like rolling in, and we know the deluge is gonna happen. Ham has decided to bring his girlfriend that he met 20 seconds ago back to the Ark because he's in love with her, and she gets trapped in the scene that like makes every hair on my body stand on edge in like a bear trap thing.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, the entire sequence of her and Bear Trap, like Oh, when we get okay, yeah.
Keep going.
And so, like, she's trying to get out, and Ham's trying to help. Noah has gone running after Ham. You see this crowd of people, like this just total mob running. And Noah breaks them up, grabs his son, leaves her behind. She's then trampled to death.
It's so visceral. It sucks to watch.
And the just noise of her screaming, then followed by a wet snap and silence. The audio of this movie, like, I'm not into that stuff because I'm not smart and I can't really like dissect that stuff. But like that,
the psychological horror
It's good.
of the story of Noah, I think, is like really shown in this film. And so I think like maybe I buried the lead in that I'm a huge fan of horror, especially psychological horror. So this film does it for me, and this scene does it for me. It is like burned into my brain. I will never forget that scene.
Well, especially because the scene right before it is Emma Watson being like, "Oh my God, my womb's fixed.
Now I have to go fuck immediately."
Jon Snow inside me.
Yeah. For me, horror is something like ballet. Like, I understand and appreciate the art of it, and I hate it with a passion.
So you're meaning to tell me our next film is going to be the psychological horror film about ballet Black Swan?
Nope.
I am fascinated by horror movies because I'm a little bit baby, and I am the most easily jump scared human being in the entire world.
Big same.
I once watched Heredity 2, in which a group of 13-year-old girls, when the movie was over, I heard them say, "Did you guys hear that guy scream the entire time?"
Yes,
I was said guy.
That's so sad.
There is a moment, it's slightly tangential. We went to see The Conjuring 2, and there is a scene, and it is not a scary scene. It's literally just a cut to black. There's no sound. It just cuts to black, and he screams so loud that the entire theater erupts in laughter.
I was so tense because my family that I thought loved me took me to see this scary movie that's like 2 hours long.
I am
so
on your
many
side,
jump
Josh.
scares.
I had an argument with my roommate about watching The Conjuring. Like, I would not watch that shit. Like, no way. And I think that a cut to black can be very scary. I am here. I'm going to defend Josh. This is the baby defense force. Me and Josh together.
So that's the thing, because that just...
I want to watch cartoons and nothing else.
This just
Exactly. Avatar: The Last
means
Airbender
I'm
for
going
life.
to pick all of my films to be like pseudo-religious horror films. We're watching The Exorcist.
The Exorcist. Okay.
No.
Exorcist is okay. I can handle that.
I've seen it already. Yeah.
So Noah is like, I have no time for adolescent horniness. Ham's going back to the Ark. We're over this. The Watchers are defending the Ark by like just bludgeoning the crowd. It's really cool.
They also have these chains wrapped around them. I don't know what the chains do, but they're cool.
And they've got like bits of tree and like
fucking rad.
hunks of metal that they're just like swinging around all bionically.
Yeah,
it's
and
so
I mean,
cool.
so I actually want to call out this scene for a second because a less brave director would make this the climax of the film and then like start going down and like end the film like 20 minutes later. This is the halfway point.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because like that's where I put in my notes. I was like, I'd be fine if this is where the movie ended, but it's not. And the next half of the movie makes me want to cry because it's so
literally
tense
the whole time, and it's my favorite thing about it.
It's horrible.
And then you've
Please
got
continue.
Ayn Rand capitalism dude with his Uruk-hai army.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they're in that exact same armor.
They do, yeah. They fucking have Uruk-hai armor and like little Zohar mortars that they used to shoot. They used to shoot their Watchers in the chest, and then they like pry their chests open to get the angel out.
So this is like one of my favorite small moments, and it's where I think Aronofsky really just thrives as a director, is in small moments. And you have this Watcher, like you see the light like start shining through the like stone encasement, and he apologizes to the creator moments before literally being cut in half and then like ascending out of the rock form as the being of light again. And it's actually one of the more hopeful beats in this, that the Watchers don't die in the way that the humans do. They reascend and they are actually brought back into the fold to the creator. And I find that to be so beautiful.
And there's also, like, we've seen Watchers die before in the awesome Methuselah sword scene, and that's not, like, what happens to him. So there's definitely, like, they are doing this as a, like, as a redemption. And once all of the other, like, Watchers see it, they all, like, let out their scream again, and are like, he has ascended, and it's just so... Like, when that happened, like, I was, like, jumping up and down in the theater as 15-year-old, like, yeah!
And I actually think this is what grounds the film. Like, it's not an overtly religious film, but there is, like, this message of, like, redemption and, like, doing good and helping your, you know, fellow man, and then, like, being brought back into the fold. And I really appreciate that.
Well, it also, like, with the, what's the first rock monster? The sweet baby rock
Og.
monster. Og. Where it's pushing the idea of, your decisions are super important for, closeness and the correct decision
Yes.
of the maker. Because he's going against, like, what the other Watchers say, and because of that, now all of him and his friends can rejoin the maker in heaven. And I think that is, like, at least a little bit of foreshadowing of later decisions in the, let's call it the traumatic half of the movie.
I agree with that
I
assessment.
like to call it the where things get real half of the movie. It's my favorite half of the movie. I'm sure all of our listeners now think I am a psychopath.
I know you're a psychopath now.
As they should. As they should.
So it's the best ascension where he just like explodes. And when he does ascend, we get like a panning up, and we see the way that like this film has decided to portray the deluge as the world covered in hurricanes.
That's really cool. I loved that shot. Just like 100 different like spiral clouds all across the surface of the earth. That's gorgeous.
It's really spooky.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, in between, like, the rock monsters exploding, we get a very Gladiator scene of Russell Crowe just taking on, like, one soldier at a time by throwing random weapons at them and beating them up in a very aggressive manner. And that was the, we got Russell Crowe, we're gonna make him do some
I
Gladiator
feel like
stuff.
Russell Crowe probably asked for that scene
That's
because
true. He's like, this is too much acting. Can I punch a couple guys?
yeah.
Hey, you know I can throw a spear?
Let me show you. Darren,
Yeah.
give me a spear. Give me a spear.
Give me your most non-important extra.
And so then we get a scene. Methuselah finally finds his berries and then dies unceremoniously when the deluge comes by, and that is that on that.
So good.
Well, he like looks at the water coming at him and like smiles and like opens up his arms, and like I thought it was going to be another one of those like girl and bear trap moments, but it instead echoed my God's a little scamp, because like right when all of the Watchers have died, then the earth opens up and geysers shoot out, killing all of the humans. And I literally went, why you not do that when the army first showed up, my dude? You little scamp.
It's good storytelling, Josh.
Yes.
God's a scamp.
So I do think this is a perfect time for me to go on my obligatory I hate how Hollywood portrays anything underwater. I just think it's really trite and really boring. They just put everything in a blue cast, and like it's just a very unrealistic depiction. And the reason behind that is it's very expensive and risky for the equipment to film underwater. However, it always takes me out of it because everything blue cast, and like this film actually does a good job of like not putting filters on things to tell you how you're supposed to feel in a scene, and just like lets things be what they are, except every underwater scene where it's blue, and that's how you know it's underwater. And it's so annoying. It's such a trope. I hate it, hate it, hate it. If in my directorial debut, there will not be any blue underwater scenes.
You will go through and like with a paintbrush per each scene and like with a red some paint and just like we're getting rid of this blue
Yep.
one way or another.
Yep.
Oh, I think we should also mention that like in the craziness going on, Ayn Rand capitalism was able to like burrow a little hole into the arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a little bit. Yeah, I didn't like this necessarily. I feel like Noah probably wouldn't have put a side ramp on the arc. I feel like he probably would have been a little bit more prepared for that, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, to be totally fair though, humans literally didn't bother to like even deal with them for 9.5 years. Maybe Noah just got like comfy cozy and was like, it's just us and the animals.
Yeah, he's like, I literally sneak into their camp like once a week,
true.
but they have yet to like even kind of try.
That's true.
So Tubal-Cain sneaks in, Ham sees it and says nothing because he's an asshole. We see a really, like, one of my favorite, like, horror moments is when they're all sitting around the fire, which seems very not smart for an ark made out of bamboo. Just,
Yeah.
And like pine tar, yeah.
yeah, doesn't seem smart.
The most flammable thing in all of creation.
However, I will say, don't let story points get in the way of a good scene because you're lit by the flame only and everything's black and you just hear the screams of the people drowning.
It is harrowing. And like they show you that shot of like the people that like at first I thought it was a mound of bodies. But I think it's just a rock, but still it's just like full of people writhing and screaming and like screaming at the ark, and then everybody else is inside just like
I am like the next sequence of Noah giving the creation speech is, even though I love rock monsters, it's my favorite thing in this movie.
It's so good.
It's beautiful because it takes the initial like 7-day creation story and walks you through it through a Big Bang evolution perspective. And when I first saw this, I was a I don't know how to describe it, science-y Christian, where like that was very in my wheelhouse of like, oh well, that's just a myth. It wasn't God actually taking 7 days. So I dug this so much. And it's also beautiful as it walks through, like, you're flying through, like, nebulas and stars, and then watching animals slowly evolve. And then the actual scene of the Garden of Eden with the snake shedding its skin and then being the devil. I know there's a metaphor there. I'm not smart enough to know what it is.
Well, it's just a powerful scene in which we get, like, an explanation. And it actually brings me, so the one group of religious people who did not like this film are 7-day creationists. The people who believe that like it is literal and that the young earth theorists hate this because this film really does say a day doesn't need to be a day in that we understand it, right? And like Noah walks us through creation and says on day 1, but we see these things happening sped up. And like, what is a day in the middle of a nebula?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it also did something interesting with time. Like, there's at the very end of this story where he's showing how, Cain killed someone. It shows, like, the original shot of, like, a guy holding a rock to bring it down on his brother. And then, like, it shows, like, various different, like, people in military uniforms, like the rock becomes like a spear and then a sword and then a gun and then like and then like it keeps changing, and like I'm wondering if Aronofsky just means that as like a metaphor, or like if this story in his mind like takes place like after a post-apocalyptic society.
I love that you brought that up because there's actually I did some homework on this, and so Aronofsky actually intentionally put that scene in, and he did not have a particular like side that he took. It was open for interpretation.
Okay.
And he wanted
cool.
a neutral time frame where then 6,000 years in the future, or 10,000 years in the past, or wherever you would like to put it. Because the idea in the interview, he says, like, the idea is this is a, like, universal timeless story.
That's really dank, because, like, if you look at some of the, like, pieces of metal that they use, it kind of looks like really modern stuff. And I just, as a me, I was like, oh, cool. Still, like, thousands of years in the past, but it's cool that you can look at the story as this could take place, like, a couple thousand years from now.
Yeah. And so Noah explains his way of thinking and says that the kids have to bury each other, looks at the young one and says, "You'll die alone, sucks to suck, I guess."
And he has no reaction because
This poor little kid. And then, of course, Ham gets mad and runs off. And I said that a really dangerous drinking game that you could have is whenever Noah or his wife just yells, "Ham!" when he runs away. Like, you could not,
You'll die.
like, you'd have to have your stomach pumped because they do it so often. And, I just really think that Ham is the weakest character in this. And I don't know if it's the acting, I don't know if it's the writing or some combination, but he's just a little twerp. I hate him.
He does suck.
I think he's a good character. I think he's a shitty
Yes.
like person, but I think his character motivations make
Yes.
sense. I would say the weakest character is like either Japheth or the Emma Watson's husband, because like it's Shem. Yeah, he's like pretty one note. But I'm gonna be the Ham defender here. I liked his story arc, even if he's a shitty dude.
So Ham is keeping Tubal-Cain alive and in secret because he's horny and his girlfriend got left behind.
Can we talk about Tubal-Cain's lizard snack?
Yes, please. I was just about to mention that.
Yes.
Because he just grabs a lizard and bites it.
Head first, raw. He's just like, ah. And Ham's like, "What the fuck are you doing? There's only one of those." He's like, "I don't care."
He says, "There's only one of me."
So funny.
And then he gives a piece to Ham.
Yeah.
Out of his mouth.
Yes.
It's like, "Hey, here you go."
Oh, sorry. Mind my manners. I did want to mention that I would be hopeless on an arc. This seems like the worst combination of places for me because I am hopelessly homosexual. I get tension headaches when it rains, and I have seasonal effectiveness. Like, this would just be a nightmare.
I love you both, but I don't think any of us would do well in this exact circumstance.
No.
I think we'd leave it all pretty fucked.
Yeah, without podcasts to alleviate like my own thoughts, like I would throw myself into the sea.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd just be like, "Hey, snakes, eat me. I'm done."
So we actually get, in my opinion, the most heartwarming scene in the film with Ela and Name, where Name invents a pregnancy
I
test.
loved that.
It was so good.
Ela, she is sick and she's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And like, "Why am I so sick?" And Name's like, "Girl, you pregnant." And then, of course, because as I mentioned, Aronofsky loves to rob us of joy in beautiful ways, we just see Name's face like drop when she kind of like puts two and two together of, oh, Noah's a curmudgeon and he thinks humans should die.
Yeah. That scene is like
Noah,
rough.
well, and Noah doubts that she could even feasibly be pregnant, as if he didn't just make a bunch of rock monsters build an ark because of a dream he had about a flood. Like, Noah's doubting of, like, supernatural just feels very unfounded.
I also, like, she got stabbed in the movie womb.
Yeah.
Like, how does he know? Like, another response could have been like, "Oh yeah, we were wrong." Because
Yeah.
like it's the year 4 or 4,812. So like we were just we goofed on that one. She's super fertile.
This might be giving Aronofsky too much credit, but I feel like it's a pretty good portrayal of denial, right? Because this is where we get into Noah's, his own internal struggle, because he's like, he is singularly focused on his goal that he believes is given to him by God, but also like the struggle of like, he's going to destroy his family. And we get to that with like the final confrontation between him and Name. But like, I think you could make an argument that like Noah's actually like, no, I don't want this to be true.
Oh yeah.
And then when you have him like exit into the rain, which I like this movie a lot. There's a lot of angry ladder climbing that really takes me out of it, because he climbs up a ladder and then walks around to the other side of the ladder and then continues climbing the ladder, and I just watched it going, you didn't have to do that, man. You didn't have to show us that.
So I guess I just took it as like showing how torn Noah is, right? Because like his actions portray someone who is so sure of everything, but like showing the doubt and the pensiveness. I actually really felt like this was an interesting through line to like the story of Abraham, where
oh yeah, exactly,
like God is saying kill your progeny, in this case grandchildren, in his case son, and Noah is like having some real problems with it.
Well, then, because like he exits into the rain and like screams up into the heavens, like, I can't do this. Don't make me do this.
Yep.
And then
when he accepts it,
the rain stops because God's a little scamp.
Like that's this whole part about like the story of Abraham and Jacob, and then like this analogy, like that starts to get at the core of why I ended up not being a Christian anymore, because like there's two problems I have with Christianity, which is like the problem of evil and the problem of God's omnipotence. And like if you get to a part where a God that is both omnipotent and also all loving is like, but you should probably kill your kid just to prove your faith to me, like that's no good, y'all. You can't build a moral system on that.
It is a reminder of my, back when I still identified as a Christian, of Old Testament God is an asshole.
Yeah.
He sucks so bad.
There's a point where he just kills a dude for like, who puts his hand on the ark to keep it from falling off of a cart.
Why'd you do that, God?
Welcome to the roast session of Old Testament God.
All right, Yahweh, you've had it coming.
You had it good for so long. I've got notes.
But some 20-year-olds are about to take you down.
Yeah. Total novel criticisms.
This is the future conservatives have been dreading.
100%.
Oh, Christ.
So you then see that Elah and Shem are planning on piecing out, and this is where I actually had to add a word to Grammarly, because I use Grammarly to make sure that like I don't sound like a moron when I'm typing, because I abbreviate a lot of words and like change things kind of, just because. I had to add the word murdery to my dictionary, because Noah's feeling extra murdery, and there's no other way to describe it. He just really is feeling the murder. And
he's murder horny.
Yeah. And Elah obviously is like, I want to protect my babies. I didn't think I could have them. And Name yells at Noah because he is alienating his whole family by being so murdery. And like, here's the thing, Noah is getting so aggro at Shem and Elah when the real child he should have his eyes on is Ham. And it really, I'm going to go on my oldest child tirade here, where...
Here we go. Let's put Josh on blast.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So the oldest kid will do something that is like a 4 out of 10, and parents bring down the hammer to make an example. And then the next one does something that's like an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. And they're like, what could I have done?
Okay, but also, if we're going to continue with this metaphor, and then they'll look the youngest in the eye and say, you'll die alone, the last human on Earth. Suck it.
And that is your right.
Yeah.
You got me there. That is the burden of every youngest child. Dying alone.
So Noah decides to use his little magic to burn the boat, right as conveniently Hila goes into, as I like to call it, cinematic labor, where you hear the sploosh of her water breaking.
I love Murder
so
Birth.
stupid.
Murder Birth's so funny. Because I don't know what real birth is like, but I know it's not that.
Yeah.
We can talk a little bit about labor here in a second.
Yeah, Aaron's going to actually teach me where babies come from.
Oh, excellent.
And we're going to keep it all in because we should be an educational podcast.
Oh no, if I have an opportunity to showcase my very limited medical knowledge, it will be on record.
Listen, will be like the first time I've gotten a real talk from someone.
Excellent.
So I will
That's
take this
unfair.
opportunity.
Michael never got it. Michael still doesn't know where babies come from.
Well, Michael gave me a talk. I don't know if it was the talk.
Oh, wow.
Because our parents sure as hell weren't gonna.
Gotta love evangelicalism. So we get, in my opinion, one of my favorite fight scenes because we see that Tubal-Cain, Ham decides to like Noah and to go seeing him because Tubal-Cain killed one of the animals. And he's like, oh my God, a lion must have attacked it or something. And Noah's like, I thought they were sleeping, but fine. And follows the one child he should not trust. And of course, we get a fight scene between Tubal-Cain and Noah. But what I love about this scene is it is juxtaposed with Hila giving birth. So you do kind of have the whole like birth as warfare and like combat and like having that go on side by side, I think is like a cool cinematic parallel. And the stakes are equally high for both, right? Because like, no, if your kid is a boy, you can keep him fine. But if it's a girl, we got to kill him because what if incest?
Because Ham is so horny. And like, it being his niece will not stop that horny man.
Yeah. As far as this fight scene goes, contrasted to the labor, it is an incredibly fast labor.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I took my Peds OB course, but I do not believe that labor could for twins, as it turns out, could take place over the course of like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and we are also getting my favorite himbo sequence of where Shem is like standing outside with a spear, like eyeballing his dad, and then
that.
When he comes in to see his daughters, he's like, "I'm gonna go kill Noah," and then he like goes down to kill Noah, and it's just immediately like thrown away by Tubal-Cain. And just lays in a pile of bags.
I did say that Shem joined Noah and Ham and Tubal-Cain on the murder train because everyone's feeling extra murdery right now, except the women. And this is a reminder that the women in this film are the only ones that make any intelligent choices that are like long lasting.
Well, I think it's playing into the, like, toxic masculinity, because the other character that isn't participating in the murder train is the kid who hasn't hit puberty. I'm assuming, because he's not a horn dog like Ham.
Yeah.
And that's the youngest kid whose name I constantly forget.
Yeah.
Japheth. And I think I might be giving it a little bit too much because I'm pretty sure what happened is they were like, well, technically Japheth is there, but we've got absolutely nothing for him.
Yep.
Probably.
So maybe happy accident with this exact sequence.
This does bring us to like the culmination of the fight where we get this cool image of Tubal-Cain as Cain, Noah as Abel, and like we know how the story ends, right? But like it is a cool scene of like, oh my God, history is repeating itself. And we have seen Ham stare lovingly at the knife, probably thinking, could that be my girlfriend?
There's gotta be a way to fuck this.
He decides, no, that is not my girlfriend. I am going to prevent history from repeating itself, and makes his one entire film and kills Tubal-Cain.
And at that point, Tubal-Cain says, now you're a man.
Yep.
And like, okay, that's a good. I thought that was a fine ending to his character
Yeah.
arc. I approve.
And they get the snake skin back, of course.
Right before that, in the final compilation of God's a Little Scamp, they hit land right when the fight is going on. Right after they had wanted to find land for Hela and Shem to go, like, not get murdered by Noah.
Well, and
God, I love God in this movie. He's such a dick.
Noah decides then, okay, so we've killed someone, but my bloodlust is not satiated. So I'm going to go back on my murder bullshit. And Name is like, oh, she had a boy. Problem solved. Easy enough. You don't have to look in here. And
no need to check.
the room is empty. And then we hear the baby cry. Noah goes back up there. And Name is like crying to Noah saying, look, the creator has given us everything we need. She had twin girls because we know God loves incest and they can marry our sons. And look at that.
I'm actually going to say, though, that is a very true and funny thing. Her performance here kicks ass.
Oh yeah, no, the reason that I did not want to watch this film is because I remembered these last couple minutes of like Noah hunting Emma Watson's children, and like I that it ends happy because it's the story of Noah, but I was just like, oh my god, it is so tense. And even knowing the ending, we're rewatching it, I was just like, Jesus, this is so brutal.
It's so brutal, and like Noah's holding the knife up to like the CGI baby, and he's like ready to stab it, and like last minute decides not to. Because of Hela.
Well, there's also...
Because Hela asks, give me a moment to calm them down so they don't cry while they're dead. And she sings the same song that Noah sang her to sleep with. And it's just such, like it's gut-wrenching.
Yeah, because back then, he thought she was a burden. And now he thinks these babies are burdens. And... he could be like, they're actually a gift, and I'm still a bit of a dick. I'm still... nothing has changed. I still suck. The sequence of him, like, with the knife right over their head, and then he, like, kisses them on the head, and then just is so defeated.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he has successfully failed everything and everyone.
And that scene is why I wanted to watch this film so much again, because it's so powerful.
It is an astounding scene, and I love it so much.